And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ellie. I am a business coach and spiritual advisor. And this is an opportunity for us to sit down every week and to chat about, excuse me, what's on your mind, to go through some questions that I've been asked during the week. And if you have questions, then pop them in the chat here. And if you're joining me live, hello, welcome. Let's just see what we have on the list today. We have some light topics on the list today, actually. Just some light housekeeping, as I like to say. We're going to talk about, oh yeah, we're going to talk about relationship with God. Light topic. We're going to talk about dog blankets. Wait for that one. Falling out of love, falling out of love with your partner, falling out of love with your business, and the correlation of these two. I'm not telling you that you're pushing through your relationship with your partner, but I am saying you might be. Um, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about, if we can, we're gonna touch on the creator, destroyer, and preserver, good old Kali Ma. So I feel the need every time just to say, buckle up. Welcome to the podcast and let's dive in. Oh yeah, I also promised this story. I was thinking about this. Um, for those of you that don't know this, I live in just outside of Vancouver, BC. I live in the Lower Mainland, and I moved here from Ontario, but this is the second time that I've moved here. The first time was in my early 20s, or kind of mid 20s actually. And if you have not uh listen to the podcast that I did and you're curious about my coming out story, there's a podcast on Almost Too Honest with Brie Voisey, where I talk about my coming out and my discovery of being queer and what that meant for me and the long and harsh journey that I took to get here. Um, and so this occurred during my first when I moved to BC is whenever I came out the first time I came to BC. And I was in my 20s and that was a different time in my life, We went to pubs, we went to bars, we went dancing on the weekends. There was this really great, I don't know if any of you that are listening remember this, but shout out to all of the the queer dance parties that were put on. There was these, a couple of groups of queers really that would do like prom, the queer prom, or that would do queer dances. The name of them, I'm gonna have to ask my one of my besties. She will remember, but the name of the event, I just oh, it was good too. I can't remember. And so we did lots of like fun things that often people do in their 20s and gained experience. And oh yeah, we're going to talk about this. This is where this is going already. We're going to talk about kinks. So my before I moved here, did anybody watch the show Kink on like Friday night at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Whenever, oh, what was the name? These are horrible stories. I can't remember anything about the details. What was the name of that TV channel that was like not Bravo? Anyways, after dark, Kink After Dark. It's like whenever the channel turned like all like taboo, if you will. And the show that came on, it had this woman. Oh, I feel like this is going into a deeper. I'll also tell you a deeper story one day. But it had this woman on named Elaine who lived out in BC, and she was a dominatrix. And the story that I'll tell you one day is the time that I dated Elaine's boyfriend. Um, but that has to be reserved because we have to stay on track with this story that I'm trying to tell you here. And what ended up happening was I was watching the kink show and they showed different kinks that people had. And I literally was like, a picture Small town, like really small town. When people tell me that they were from a small town and they're like, oh yeah, a couple of thousand people, I was like, there was 150 people. Like I think actually 147 people that lived in my small town. The apartment building that I lived in when I moved out of my small town had more people in it than my small town put together. Like it was a tiny little town. And so just me and my sheltered little in the closet queerdo. We had a satellite dish, and so I got to watch TV on the satellite dish. And on Friday nights, there was Kink. And kink fascinated me because I thought to myself, like, you know, I only knew of what sex was when it came to movies or like my family didn't, I mean, whose family does really talk about it? Well, my family will now. From me down, we'll be talking about this. And I didn't know I didn't know much about it. I didn't know, I watched the romantic movies. I watched, remember Titanic? Oh, those were the days, you know? And I remember thinking to myself, actually, my crush, my celebrity crush, I really only had one, was Leonardo DiCaprio. But if we think about it, Leonardo DiCaprio really just looks like a queer woman. So to no one's surprise now, but here we are. So I would watch Kink and I remember, oh, this is so good. We're taking a hard left already. That I saw this kink that was called pony play. Now, pony play, hi Hallie, you've come at the right time to talk about pony play. The pony play is essentially where someone dresses up in like a harness and maybe a leather mask and maybe a crop, and possibly in the same room, there's someone else who dresses up as the rider, let's say, with a riding crop. Oh, this is getting into the winding road that is my how I how I lived my life in my 20s. And I was so shocked, so incredibly shocked that someone would get this is also where I learned about like furries. This is where I learned about something called splooshing. I'll tell you about splooshing later. Um, I was so shocked that somebody would like dress up and neigh and like hold their hands like hooves and put on some sort of leather mask that was designed to make them look like a pony. And that imprinted that imprinted in me that I would tell people, usually after, an evening of confessionals, after alcohol was involved, let's say, after a night of drinking, I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, I've got something serious to tell you. There are people who dress up as ponies. Now, just for perspective, like my absolute favorite thing, when I walk downtown, like on Davie Street in Vancouver, and I see a fucking kitty, a puppy, oh, give me a puppy any day, or a pony, I am delighted. I am so like delighted that I'm just like, one day I want a pony. One day I want a puppy. Imagine there was this girl. Oh, we've gone so far left. I can't wait to bring us back. There was this girl one time I was downtown and she was walking her fucking puppy on a leash. And he was just like, no one's fucking business. A goddamn puppy walking down the street. And oh, longed for my very own puppy one day. Imagine what that would be like. Okay. So, um, pony play. I was so like fascinated by this. I just couldn't imagine. Now, is it a kink of mine? Like, do I get off on it? I don't think so. Don't try until don't knock until you try it. I don't think so, but my deep like Oh yeah, there's something there. Never mind. There's something there. There's this deep intrigue with just like the extreme role. And this to me is so outside of the Dom sub roles because in Dom sub it's often explicitly sensual, it's often explicitly sexual, and oh, just imagine walking your fucking puppy down the street though. Mm, Anyway, so now come with me. After Kink, I moved to Vancouver and anything goes. Oh my gosh, Hallie Dragons? I'm not frozen. New kink unlocked. Um, so anything goes in Vancouver. And as we were talking last week with the whole Moonbeam, the name that I may take on for myself, I'm still trying it on. Let me know what you think. Um, Moonbeam, actually, the other day, my wife called me Harvest Moon, and I literally was like, maybe is my name Harvest? She's like, I thought that was your name. I was like, it is now. So, anything goes. Okay. Last week we learned about hugs naked, and today we're learning about ponies. And so I just love the sheer liberation of like people. There's enough people here. This is the thing with small towns is that there's a lot of courage that is needed to stand out in a small town. When you have tons of people, you're just going to find other weirdos with you. And it's just like, oh, hey, no big deal. Just walking my pony or just walking my puppy down the street. Okay. I'm going to post some photos in my stories of puppies. If and ponies for that matter. Usually at parades, boys are puppies. This is what I've seen a lot of the time. Boys are puppies and girls are ponies. And I'm just telling you, the answer is yes. So, I'm telling people this, and I'm telling people this. I continue throughout my life, like I am right now, in the shock of my little being about puppies and ponies and splooshing. So, just briefly on splooshing, splooshing is where maybe it's just underwear, maybe it's a diaper, maybe it's something, but my in this is where the intrigue came from, is that you pour like a can of beans. We're not talking like a can of cannellonis, we're talking like Heinz tomato beans down your pants and then sploosh it around as a turn on. And when I would bring this up, I thought to myself, like, where does this kink come from? I don't know if anybody's read the book Existential Kink or is in the kink. I don't even like the term the kink community because I think it's so loaded. Oh, we clearly need to talk about baby girl. Okay, we've gone. Come with me on this journey. Um, and so in the world of kink, let's say, I just thought to myself, like, where did this come from? Like, when you were a baby, did accidentally, because like things get down kids' diapers all the time. Like, you could find a friggin' gold bar down there. They'll just, that's their pockets when they're kids, you know? Like, did beans fall down your diaper? And you were like, oh, because our kinks come from somewhere. And I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to be fascinated by it, just as I'm here enamored with the whole puppy pony thing. Okay, so come with me as someone who's just literally intrigued by what turns people on. This has always been a conversation that I've had with friends. This has always been a conversation. Hi everyone that's joined me. You're in for it today. As we get unhinged. And I just think this, like, what makes people tick, whether it's kink or not. I'm so curious about where did that come from. And I had this really oh lovely conversation with my love this week just about like, oh, of course you want to protect them, you know? Of course you want to help them because our little ones just like they have this constant need to be seen and heard. And so how does this come out in kink? Okay. So, to the story that I promised around tooting, I don't know, farting, mouths, and kink. This guy who at this point was on a friend of mine who was on like, oh, what was it called at that point? This is when Grinder was first, I don't know, out. And oh, Woof. There might have been one called Woof. Woof? I feel like it was called Wolf. Woof. So, anyways, he's on this site and he's going on dates with men. And he tells me this story that like he goes on this date, they go out for, I don't know, let's say they go for dinner or they do something, and they end up back at his place. They go for drinks, end up back at his place. And it was really nice and it was really lovely, and he seemed like a really good guy. And when they get back to his place, the guy asks my friend to if it would be okay if he would be able to fart in if my friend could fart in his mouth, because that was one of the only ways he could get turned on. And and my friend was just like so weirded out by this. And I'm on the edge of my seat going, okay, well, did you do it? Like, what happened? I need every detail about what happened. Like, the conversation. And I was like, was there any indication at dinner or drinks beforehand? Like, what do you guys have conversations? Like, men date differently than women do. Did you have conversations about your turn-ons before you met up? And he's like, no, I just kind of met him on the app. And then I was like, is this like a situation like, I don't know if anybody has read the book Ruby Fruit Jungle, but Ruby Fruit Jungle is probably, I didn't mention this on Bree's podcast, but I probably should have. I think it that book alone may be the book that I need to like thank in my speech, let's say at my wedding, for making me realize that I was gay. And the Ruby Fruit Jungle, not to spoil it, but there's one part of the book where the main character needs to earn money and she's living in out of her car in New York City, and somebody who's hustling on the street says to her, "Oh, I've got a guy. I've got a guy. I'll hook you up." And essentially the job is to hurl citrus fruit at him from across the room while he's naked, like try to hit him with like oranges and lemons as hard as she can while the like juice splashes all over and he just is like, ugh, from the impact of the blow. But then he can never have the same person do it twice because he's so mortified about his kink. This is a whole other thing. We're gonna have many a conversation around kinks probably. He's so mortified of this kink that he can't he can't have somebody do it twice. And I guess her friend had already done it, and that's why he's like, "Oh, I've got it. I've got a guy." So come back to the farting in the mouth situation with this friend of mine. I said to him, like, are you going A, did you do it? B, are you going to see him again? Like, is this a situation where he's so mortified that he wants somebody to fart in his mouth that he can never see you again? And that's why you guys didn't talk about before. I'm like, what, walk me back like 18 steps. Was there any indication? Did he say anything about gas that day? Did he ask you what you ate for lunch? Did he order for you? Were there beans involved? Oh, that's a good time. So this that was such a good time in my life. And when I think about the relationship that we have from like kink and spirituality, it's like this total like pull that often we have of rejection. Like the things that we reject the most are the things that we often get pulled in, like quantumly pulled into us. And this is often the case for spiritual teachings, is that it's like you're not ready until the teacher is present, or until whatever this when you are ready, the teacher will present themselves. And the the idea around kink is like this sacred and special experience in a deeply intimate, like to know, to be spiritual is to know God or the goddess, and to understand that this is, as we express and as we are in communion, oh, with our kink, with our partner, that this is really a spiritual experience that we're having. And so, you know, the reason that talking about talking about sensuality, sexuality, talking about intimacy with partners is so closely connected to me with talking about spiritual teachings and why we do what we do and devotion and God and the goddess is because they're just one and the same for me. They're very much one and the same. And I think that when when we have these experiences of kink, that it may be, I'm curious. Oh, I'm really curious. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do a study. Now, I'm really curious to know if this is like with these kinks, if this is an unconscious or conscious acknowledgement of being brought to like a higher ground, like spirituality does for us? I'm like, obviously the answer is yes. I was just thinking about a little while ago, I sent my love a text message that said, "Hey, can I be a dom?" And her response immediately was like, "I thought you already are one." Like, yes, the answer is yes. Go ahead. And this leads me into telling you the story about, oh yeah, okay. We've gone off topic, but completely on brand, let's say. When when I first moved to Vancouver, I lived with one of my very best friends. Shout out to Mary and her partner. And they lived this beautiful house, and we uh, love bless her partner at the time. They were like a Tasmanian devil. Just like everything they touched was left extremely unorganized or misplaced, let's say. I'm thinking about this now, like this is what ADHD is. This is what my living with my love is like. And so we decided, because at this time you could still post ads at the back in quotations of Craigslist. Like there could still be escort ads in the back of Craigslist. And this was the wild times for us. Man, sometimes when I look back on life, I'm like, we did it with all our heart. We have done some things. So we decided that we would put an ad up on Craigslist for a houseboy. And we were very specific with the requirements of the houseboy. And the houseboy, there was no sexual transaction. It was pure kink. And also, you know, for anybody because women ask me this question often, and the question is, if you are in partnership, if you're in intimacy with your female partner, and they're the one penetrating you and they don't orgasm, like is that pleasurable to them? And the like the snarky part of me wants to be like, well, do you? Because honey, you ain't orgasming all the time, are ya? Um, and it just opens up but I'm not that snarky, off the cuff. I mean, it takes me a minute. Yeah, I gotta earn some trust here. And so I have to explain to them like there's an immense amount of pleasure. And this is the thing with kink is like it doesn't have to be penetrative. It doesn't have to be sexual. Like there's probably an immense amount of sensual pleasure that happens from like, oh my gosh, this is why we know about pony play. Is like imagine, okay, come with me. Close your eyes if you're not driving. I have to swallow hard. Imagine, oh, I can barely get it out. The smell of the leather. Like the thing with kink is that we're turning on multiple senses. And so, like the smell of the leather, the feeling of the leather against your skin, maybe the feeling of bare skin with leather on it, and how that only like part of your skin is exposed. Oh my God, I'm so hot right now. Part of your skin is exposed, part of it is covered by leather. Part of it, this whole dynamic of push and pull. I don't know if I could ever be. I would want to have a pony, but I don't know if I could ever be a pony because I'm my brat kink is far too through the roof for this. And maybe ponies are really naughty, so maybe I can. But like the the sound of the chains or the sound of even the sound of the crop. Now, anybody who's a horse rider now, like you're gonna look at riding horses so different. The sound of the crop, like even just waving through the air before it hits anything. Oh my God. Ah, it's so good. The sound of the clip clap of I had to swallow hard of hooves, like oh the whole push and pull of like someone else leading you and pulling you back. Come on. Come on. You know? It's so good. And so kink is not always sexual in terms of penetration. It's not always the end goal is not getting off. I think if we boil down kink, we can really boil it down to like this active submissive or like dominant submissive category. Every single one of them has a dominant submissive. And we can really boil it down to like surrender and control. I had to swallow hard there as well. And the act of surrendering, oh, to a partner. Oh my God, it's so good. The act of surrendering, the act of submitting, or on the flip side of that, the act of like taking complete control and the power that comes with knowing that you are responsible for the safety and pleasure of someone else. Oh my gosh. Don't even with me. Don't even. Okay, so we need a moment after that. We need a moment. Whew, for the hail of kink and the hail of dominance and submission coming through and surrender and control, what is spirituality? Surrender and control. That someone else has you at all times. Okay? And so, yeah, one time I went to these two queer gals were moving to Australia, and they were having like a come and get it party, let's say, in their house with things that they had that they were giving away. And so they invited a bunch of their friends. And one of one of the women came up to me and she's like, "Oh, you need this," and handed me a riding crop. And I literally was like, "Oh, I need this." So that's how I got my first crop. Um, Petrified of horses, love ponies. As long as they are of the human form. So, kink, tooting in mouths, what makes people tick? That it is literally just this experience of merging, the merging of souls. Wow. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, that is what we have to talk about with kink. Then we just spent some time talking about kink. If you're joining me live and you have questions about any of that, then please ask. I want to move. I mean, I'll talk about this all day, but I want to move into falling out of love with our business and what we do. What do we do? I was on a call the other day, and one of the gals asked this question around, I have this product, and what do I do? I'm not selling the product. The product is really good for people, but the people aren't buying the product. And every time I go to sell the product, I'm just like kind of meh about it, meh about the product itself. And I think that we can really, like, now that we're on this whole train of sensuality, sexuality, and business, and spirituality for that matter, and how they're all intertwined, we can start to apply these principles of like falling out of love with our products, falling out of love with our business. And it's so subtle. This is the same thing as like falling out of love with our partner. We don't even know that we've fallen out of love with them. And what happens is like they put on a nice shirt and we go out on a date and I'm just like, who are you? I remember these times. Ooh, that cologne is nice. You know? And then for the rest of the week or however long it is between dates, it's like we're in our house clothes and we're like in our old slippers and in our comfort zone. And that comfort zone, unless we're building work, unless we're uh, consciously building tension, this is getting back to the story that I only half told you. I'm coming back to it now. Unless we consciously build this tension with our partner, the the tension is lost. It's like it's gone. And then what ends up happening between us and our partner, I'm going to come back to the business and I want to finish this story around living with my bestie and putting an ad on Craigslist. Unless we know how to build the tension back up, like getting dressed up and going on dates. Like this is why most relationship books say keep the intimacy alive in your relationship. Keep the intimacy alive by dating each other, continuing to date each other. So come back with me. We're in our early 20s. My bestie and I are like, we don't want to clean the house anymore. Like, ain't nobody got time. I'm going on way too many dates to clean the house. Come on. I got I got things to do. I'm looking for a job. I just moved to a new city and it's big and people are like my small town is eyes are just opened. And so we decide that we are going to put an ad up on Craigslist for a houseboy. Now, we're very specific about the houseboy. We want them to be obviously submissive. There will be no sexual exchange. There will be no monetary exchange. You come to our house. You clean our home. We had very specific things that they could wear, attire that they could wear. There was certain things that we wanted them to do. Like, of course, we didn't want to like clean the toilets and do the dishes. Our houseboy could do that for us. And to find somebody that had serious pleasure in pleasing somebody through a clean house. And I don't know, speaking of movies, if you've ever watched the movie My Own Private Idaho, it's kind of interesting. Unless you watch the director's cut, the movie doesn't make sense because they've cut too much of it out that it no longer makes sense. But one of the opening scenes is, I think it's River Phoenix, who's just like making these scrubbing sounds on like a sink or a toilet, and they're in like a little French maid uniform. And there's a man who's sort of an older gentleman who has, I remember he has those things that keep your socks up, sock stirrups, sock stirrups on, and he's like expressing himself over the house, like, oh, like harder, as hard or as soft that River Phoenix is like scrubbing the sink with. And this is the essence of it. This is the essence of the control and the submission and the surrender in here. And so we were very specific what we wanted the boy to do and how they would be treated. And it was a damn good deal. And I just wish that, I mean, I'm really happy that there's no, personal ads at the back of Craigslist anymore, because it clearly, with the Long Island, what was that case, the Long Island, maybe they called them the Strangler. Anyways, somebody in Long Island who was basically, this is not the only place this has happened, but basically taking women from personal Craigslist ads and murdering them. And so thank you, Craigslist, for the safety of our women. And I'm also a little disappointed. And there are some places like, I mean, of course, I'll find any place to look for a houseboy, but I'm just reminding myself that this might be another endeavor that I want to go on again. Mommy needs her house cleaned. I can barely say that with a straight face. Straight face. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. So come into the transition now. Let's walk towards this idea of spirituality and actually the tension that we feel with God or the goddess, and how deeply, deeply intimate and how deeply sensual it can actually be. I'm reading a book right now called The Purpose-Driven Life. I thought I had it with me. The Purpose-Driven Life, and it's a 40-day practice. I'm a huge fan of a 40-day practice. I think you'll see these in my business this year, because I think it's literally a life-changing experience to have a 40-day practice of something. And so the book every day has a different concept, spiritual concept that it introduces around understanding and living your purpose-driven life. And one of the things, like, of course, there's, when we look at religion, when we look at the sanctity, the sanctuary, and the sanctions of religion, we're really looking at like re-legioning the people. And although I think that there's probably nothing wrong with that, but sometimes people call that other things. And um, it can sometimes be a real issue for people. And my belief is that God doesn't happen in the church. It's one place that it will happen, but God doesn't happen in the church. And so a friend of mine asked me this whole around these questions around this book. She's reading it with me around pleasing God. Oh, that's a bit triggering. Pleasing God. How do we please him with a capital H? Him. And of course, the patriarchal red flags immediately like send brill and chill down my spine. But if we look at this with a really fresh set of eyes, we can start to see that the act of devotion to something higher, whether that's God or the universe or your guides or the goddess or something else, then we can, Allah, God has many names. Until we understand the concept of giving ourselves over. Oh my God, let's talk about it. Let's bring this home. Giving ourselves over is literally the act of submission, but also because submission, it has this like triggering word, especially around spirituality, especially around God. But if we think about if we surrender to the control, to the guidance, to the like, this is why, we refer to God as the Father, because the archetype of the Father is the guide of the direction. It is somebody who will always have your hand, will always be reaching out. Oh, just like, let's talk about like Adam in the Sistine Chapel. Like, oh, I think that's one of the most beautiful paintings ever because it is literally God with his hand outstretched. And we see the subject with their finger crooked. And all they have to do to touch God is straighten their finger. But we can see the hesitancy, even in this very historical painting, with being in communion with God, with a higher power. You call it what you want. We're going to talk about God at this moment. And how much it may please him to know you. And all you would have to do is straighten your finger, like ET phone home. Straighten your finger and touch the hand of God. Like, how sensual is that? And so, this pleasing of Him, pleasing God, pleasing of the Father, we have to understand that our patriarchal conditioning has made this abrasive to us. It has made it abrasive because we're looking through the lens, putting God not as the archetype of the all-knowing, but instead as a physical man that we can't touch, that wants us to submit to him. We have no trust with them. We have no relationship because we haven't, engaged in relationship. And I really think what has really, I studied with a spiritual teacher last year, and one of the things became really clear is like all the ways that I have been in denial, like the denying force of what which is really just how I've been in ego, like how I've been so painfully and so clearly in ego, even as somebody who is literally going through a mystery school to become like as a focalizing apprentice, and the resistance that I feel around giving myself up to the process. I'm just like the alarm bells that go off in my head as well. Imagine being with a lover. I mean, we've all been here, actually, most likely, where we haven't felt that connection. And maybe it's attraction, and we're just like our body says no, and that's the truth. But have we also ever been like nervous or something, if it's with a long-term partner, something has gotten in the way of our relationship, that we can no longer fully give ourselves over to the submission of them or the dominance. We no longer trust ourselves to be the dominant person. And I think this is also why, like, skip with me, this is also why we see so much, self appointed like number one brat over here, but also as somebody who, there's a term called topping from the bottom, that you're the one in penetration, but still trying so hard to be in control. And hey, you know what? That's a whole kink in and of itself. But if we look at surrender, and we can look at the dynamics of like not all bottoms need to be in submission and not all bottoms are submissive. But when we come back to this concept of like, where in your life are you holding? Are you holding back? Where in your life is your finger crooked? And that you refuse to be fully immersed in something. And this is what happens. I taught yoga teacher training for like, I don't know, maybe 10 or so years. And even teaching yoga itself, knowing as soon as somebody walked into the yoga studio, like as soon as the way that they put down their mat could indicate to me the level of devotion they had for the practice of yoga. And I'm not saying that we can't have multiple devotions, that we can't be in devotion to the love in our relationship, that we can't, I will talk many times over about this concept of my love and I inviting in the we to our relationship. And our devotion isn't directly to each other, it's to the we of our relationship. And that when we take our egos out of it, because if we're in devotion just back and forth, when we add a third to our relationship, things seem to go quite fine. But we add the we to our relationship. I am forced to step out of my ego, to step out of my finger pointing, to step out of all of the ways where I am blaming them. And I have to. I have to submit. I have to surrender to the fact that I need to look at my own actions. And that is absolutely game changing for a relationship. That is, when I look at, if you've anybody, when I separated, let's start here. When I separated from my former partner, bless her, if you ever hear this, hi, you know, things were so, I learned so much in that relationship. And when we were uncoupling, I decided I was going to read a couple of divorce books. I was like, okay, we've been together for like 12 or 13 years. It's time to learn how to be together with somebody because clearly I'm missing the mark. I'm missing the mark on not only how to have a really healthy relationship, but how to be healthy. How to myself be healthy? And what do I bring to the relationship? And so if you've never read any of the Goddard's book, I think they're like, let's call them the parents of relationships. And I think they might even have a podcast actually. They've definitely I've listened to one that they've guested on. So the Goddards and how beautiful their work is around, and I was not ready for it. I mean, I was in full like fledged like survival mode, uncoupling with my partner of many years, selling a house, moving across the country, and driving across the country with my pup and literally listening to the book on Audible because I really was like, okay, we need to get into what's happening here. And that was part of what was happening was the inability. And this just became like, then when I got together with my current partner, you know, the issues around control were just exacerbated because now we're no longer teenagers. And I no longer have the patience for this because I am ready, but I just didn't have the tools. And I think that this is also what happens when we come to religion, we come to spirituality. I want to say like, you know, one day I will tell you the story. Like we need to make a list of these things. I'll tell you the story of how I got kicked out of church this last year. Um, and the pain of separation for me, it's like when I know God, when I know the goddess now, that pain of separation just disappears because I am now in communion with them. And that's like when we leave our partner and maybe we go travel and we come home, it just feels so good to be home. So yeah, there's this whole piece. This was such a good question around the relationship to the capital G God and the relationship to the capital H him. And we have to really look why. This is like the work, my life's work is just looking at why. I just need to have a question mark tattooed on my forehead or something. Why are we in such an abrasive relationship? And what would it take for us? What's keeping us from full surrender? And apparently the juice is good. Like, man, people drink that the religion juice, people drink the spirituality juice all the time. Like, what do they know that I don't? And so that's where we're at. Let me think. Let me think if we got space for, oh yeah, let's come back to something I started talking about. Let's do a couple of circles around the parking lot around falling out of love with your business. So the question came from this gal who has this product and people need it and she loves it, but she's not promoting it. And what's happening here? Like, what's going on? And I said to her, part of this is just the idea of um, falling out of love with our business. When you created that product, and this is especially, I'm going to call out generators, manifesting generators, and if you are a reflector who has a team of generators or manifesting generators, this is hardcore you. The projectors and the manifestors in the house just will false start. They just won't launch it. But everyone else will launch it, fall out of love with it, or this is what happens, like writing, writing something as well. By the time it hits the eyes of whoever is reading it, it's old news now. By the time our program hits launch mode, we're so done with it because we have put all of this effort in. And one day we'll talk about the whole concept of like of uh let's call it tantric orgasm or of orgasming without ejaculation. Instagram is going to be so peeved at me for using these words. I got to come up with like code words for this. Who do I think I am? Anyway, so the idea around like we've already birthed this into the world. Now we're tired. Now I'm just tired. You want me to launch this now? Like I'm pooped. And so what happens I find with generators, manifesting generators, and like I said, some reflectors, is that you end up just trying to chase the dragon and you're constantly chasing the high that you get from creating the product. And so you become a serial product maker. Instead of just launching the same product you have, tweaking the launch possibly, and going back to the work and understanding that it's just like, oh, I fell out of love with this. And falling out of love is simply losing tension. How do we fall back in love with our business? How do we create that tension? There's a 2 year mark. I find with people, there's a 2 year mark where we start to become really compliant with, or complacent, excuse me, with our work, and we start to go like, yeah, I did a lot of work and I got here and now I'm kind of tired. And what happens at this part, especially for a high achieving women or people that have earned a lot of money, they're just like, okay, well, I guess I'm done. And if I'm done, then I just go start something new. And then this is how people become serial product launchers or serial entrepreneurs. Launch the thing again, fall back in love with it, do what you need to do. I promise you. The second time is going to be, it's like you've worked at those kinks, you've gone on a date with somebody. Well, I mean, maybe you've gone on multiple dates with somebody. No judgment here. And then you have your intimate moment. I'm trying to censor myself for oh, we've already come this far. You have sex with them for the first time. And it's like literally the first time sex, unless you've had some really good talk beforehand, unless you've set out boundaries, you've talked about what you've liked, you've had explicit communication. It's kind of bad. Like it's good. It could be good. It's not terrible. I mean, depending on who it is, but it's kind of bad. And if it's kind of bad, if we based everything off of the first time we had sex with somebody, we may never go back to them. But instead, there's this intrigue. And so go follow the intrigue. Put the cologne on, baby. Take me out somewhere fancy. That's really what's going on here. Okay. Unhinged. Oh, last thing, because I said it, I have to say it out loud. Let's talk dog blankets. Oh my gosh, I was talking to a friend of mine this week who was discovering her ability or the extent of her ability for squirting. And one of the things that I blurted out, because I don't know if you know this, but we have a pack of dogs in our house. And um, those dogs are lovely. But that means that I have a leather couch behind me, and I've learned from this leather couch that especially small dogs, they love to burrow. And so they love to dig, and they will dig and put scratch marks on your lovely leather couches. Just FYI, if you don't know this, you don't have a dog yet. And so we have dog blankets. And the beauty of dog blankets, like actual dog blankets, like branded dog blankets, the beauty of them, and I'll tell you where to get them for the most cost-effective place, because we were buying them from a different place, is that the bottom of them are usually waterproof. And so you can spill something on them or get some dirty dog toes or jizz, and it won't leak through. And so I said to my friend, hey, go to Costco. They have dog blankets there for $25, $30. And they're nice and they're plush and they're easy to wash and dry and they're perfect as a layer on your bed, on your couch, on the floor, on the chair, anywhere that you might be experimenting with jizzing. And so, my friends, go get yourself a dog blanket. So, with that, we didn't even get to Creator Destroyer. We will add that to the topic for next week. Thank you so much for joining me on this. Thank you for joining me on this wild, unhinged ride where we talk about anything and everything under the sun. Again, go check out Bree's podcast at Almost Too Much. Is that what it's called? Oh my gosh. Anyways, I'll link it below in the show notes. Go find Bree on Instagram with Bree Voisey, and I will see you all next Friday. Thank you. My loves. Thank you.